Hello everybody, Bill Harrison here with Harden Power Systems. Wanted to take a few minutes to introduce you to a new product. We call it the Scout G1. Some of you may already be familiar with our Operator G1. The two machines, especially if compared side by side, share similarities. They both are housed in ammunition cans. They both use a similar construction approach that we've used on many things over the years. Essentially, the Scout is a go box or a jump kit, kind of an all-in-one communication box. This sort of thing is often done, of course, by hams, and there are a lot of awesome examples out there of that sort of work being done. So I would just like to be able to show you our version of a go kit or a jump kit. The Scout uses HDPE, high density polyethylene, for most of the chassis components. It has an internal battery, an internal charge controller, internal solar controller. It's got an amp meter and a voltmeter. It's got two front-mounted Andersons. The one that's labeled 2 battery is a direct connection to the battery, and that allows you to either charge or discharge the battery in a field expedient way. For example, you could plug a 12-volt power source, like from a vehicle cigarette socket, directly into this port and know that you are directly charging the battery. You could also pull power directly out of this, knowing that you are circumventing the amp meter. If you had a peripheral that just needed raw 12-volt DC. It also has an Anderson port labeled auxiliary. That port does pass through the amp meter, and that obviously would allow you to monitor the power usage of a peripheral. The amp meter also monitors the power usage of whatever equipment you put in the 2 bays. You can set most likely a radio here, and if you choose to, another device here, maybe a packet modem or something. In that case, each of those devices have their own Anderson port. Those 2 independent Anderson power ports are slaved to the 2 front-mounted power switches. This is labeled left-hand bay, this is right-hand bay, and that's exactly what you'd expect. Both of those power ports are also monitored by the amp meter. The Scout has a front-mounted 3-watt speaker, and to make that work, of course, we've got a standard 1/8" mono audio plug to plug into the radio or the gear of your choice. That speaker has a defeat switch in case you're operating in a quiet environment, and if you turn that speaker off, this headphone jack remains hot. So obviously you could use headphones or earbuds or something and monitor traffic without making any external noise. The Scout also has a set of cooling fans that blow air down, and when they do that, it creates a negative pressure inside this case, and therefore draws air in through these different openings. Of course, that's going to cause the air to be pulled across your rig and down into the system and back out. Those fans are controlled by this switch, so you can either turn the fans obviously on or off. The internal charge controller has a status indicator that's visible here, and the Scout comes with our AC wall power supply. This power supply is not actually a charger. All it is a strict constant current DC power supply. What happens when you either use that AC adapter plugged into the wall, or if you use any solar panel that's 50 watts or less, when you plug in to this solar 50 watt max port, the system begins charging. The LEDs indicate that charging is occurring. You may have noticed the voltmeter jump a little bit. Once the battery is fully charged and the charge controller is no longer passing energy onto the battery, then these LEDs will remain fully lit. It's essentially an indicator that the charge cycle is finished. Now, you're not going to hurt anything by leaving it plugged in, but there's no good reason to leave it plugged in. Once you've removed power, a single LED burns, simply telling you that the system is active, but there is no incoming power. We have a front-mounted grounding lug. That grounding lug passes to these two grounding straps. Now this is nice stuff. This is woven strap, and then we hydraulically crimp and solder these lugs on. We also have and it was a bit of a trick. It was done to accommodate the Yaesu because it's such a tight fit, but the Yaesu 817 just barely fits in here. And one of the last things that made the difference was using this right angle cable. Like some of our other stuff, this cable is manufactured for us, for this machine, by an outfit called Wi-Fi Experts out of California. It's a mil spec cable. In fact, I've got this is the same cable. It's a mil spec cable. It's RG400 shielded. It's beautiful stuff, built here in the United States. And if you needed anything like that built, I'd encourage you to just do a search online for Wi-Fi Experts. They're great people to work with, and they do really nice work. One of the neat things about the operator, or the Scout, operator's been on my mind too lately, about the Scout is these two latches that cam out of the way, obviously without tools. And once you've done that, it allows you to open up the machine. And the most likely reason you'd be in here is just maybe to swap a battery, maybe to stash something if you had some small items you wanted to put somewhere secure out of the way. Here you can see the circuit breaker. We've got a 10 amp resettable heat activated push button circuit breaker, and that is accessed by the operator just by reaching in here to press that reset button. And I know that some guys are going to be disappointed in 10 amps versus 15 or 20 or 30 or whatever, but it's all about balance and about what makes sense for the rest of the system. And you know, with a 9 amp hour 108 watt hour battery, if you really are pulling 10 amps out of this, you know, you're hitting that battery fairly hard. And I realize that's only going to occur really on TX, but even so, the 10 amps to me makes sense to not strain the system and to not overpromise and to not lead people to believe that we've got some sort of magical battery in here that can actually supply 20 amps for any significant period of time. Oh, well, there's one other thing. There's a little fuse keeper here. Depending on how you're powering your stuff, you're probably going to use little pigtails coming off these Andersons. And if you did that and you had an inline fuse, it would be the little miniature blade fuse. This little cover swivels out of the way, and there's extra fuses under there in case that got you out of trouble in the field. So the Scout fits into an ammo can. And what we do is put some foam in the bottom of this can. You see, not sure if you can tell how that pushes back, but it works out really nice because when the lid is attached to this, and this is similar to how for years we've done our juice boxes and juice bricks and things. It's also similar to how the operator G1 is built. When the lid closes, it presses on these rubber bumpers, and that compresses that foam, and it works really nice. Of course, what it does is it kind of floats the whole chassis. The whole system is trapped between the rubber bumpers and the foam, and it does help absorb some impacts and jarring and bumps and vibration and so forth. But in a can like this, one of the really neat things about the Scout is we're going to be able to offer this solar panel, which we have to modify somewhat to make work in this application. But this is a rigid 27 watt that's sewn into Cordura that allows it to fold up, obviously, just like you see. But the neat thing, even though you might not think it would fit, that's 27 watts of solar right here. Now, of course, if you don't want to run the solar panel, that lower cubby could be used for paperwork or for an antenna. It's an inch tall. You could even put a small tablet or some of the sub notebooks or laptops or so forth that's available. So let's just let's take a quick look at how, for example, a Yaesu 817 fits in this. Now, it is true that thanks to an awful lot of customer feedback and requests and comments and so forth, that this is sort of optimized for the Yaesu 817. Makes sense. But it definitely isn't limited to that radio. But since it is optimized for it, it comes with this little stop that happens to be in the right location for the Yaesu. You'll notice these little dogs that are just an interference fit in the little radio shelf. And it depends, you know, what you wanted to do or what you were trying to configure. But the system comes with 4 of these. And it also comes with 2 of these pieces that can be indexed left to right in some pre-drilled holes, depending on what you wanted to do. But it does ship like you see it here. And as such, it allows you to very easily slide the Yaesu in, and if you can see that, the back of the radio, it hits that little stop. Once it hits that stop, you're in the right position that you want to be in, and you would secure the bungee underneath that little keeper. And I know it looks like it's maybe a little wobbly, but in a way that's good, right? I mean, if this thing takes a hit, at least the radio is able to absorb a little bit of that. And of course, our right angle antenna lead, it's just beautiful how all this goes together. That lead fits right on. Obviously, you've got the grounding lugs. You want to ground that rig. You've got the audio jack if you want to plug into audio, and you've got in the case of this radio, it's a 4.7 by 1.7 to plug power into the rear. And you still have room for some sort of a peripheral if you chose. You also have room to stash the microphone and just about all of its cord out of the way. So that all rides along, it all stays enclosed. So hopefully you can appreciate that you could have a radio like this. You could have a modem or a small tuner or some other peripheral if you chose to. You'd have independent control over the power to each. You'd monitor the amperage they're consuming. Forward-facing speaker, headphone, the external antenna, which obviously is just slave to the right angle pigtail and back that goes in the radio. The ground, 2 auxiliary Andersons, a 3 amp USB driver. That's a full 3 amps. It's a powerful little USB driver. Nice to power a peripheral, charge a phone, run a tablet. Man, it's a heck of a lot in a small package, no doubt about that. They're running about 15 pounds once it's all together without a radio. So that is, oh, I guess that's another thing to tell you. If you choose to run the system dark, you can turn this switch off, and the radio bay and the peripheral bay, you can still turn them on. The speaker is still hot. So if you wanted to, you can still run your gear and use the external speaker or the headphones and have the system dark. So that is the Scout G1. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you.